Does the Bible give us any advice on how to age well? Why did Adam and the generations following often live for over 900 years? And why are we now limited to living only 120 years? And how should we face old age and death? And what are the sins of our youth, our middle years, and our old age? And how is St Francis of Assisi able to face death with joy? Please, we welcome interesting questions in the comments. Let us learn and reflect together. At the end of our talk, we'll discuss the sources used for this video. Please feel free to follow along in the PowerPoint script we uploaded to SlideShare, which includes illustrations. Our sister blog includes footnotes, and both include our Amazon book links. All of the Stoic philosophers pondered on living well, aging well, and dying well. There are precious few Bible verses that directly discuss aging. The Torah, or the first 5 books of the Old Testament, explores what we should and should not do to live a godly life. Many family stories of the patriarchs explore the consequences of deceitfulness and provide examples of how we should and should not live our lives. But Genesis has many stories before Noah's Ark and the flood of men who lived very long lives. Adam lived until 930. Many of his children lived longer, and his ancestor Methuselah lived the longest at 969 years old, dying just before the flood. Noah was the last patriarch to live past 900. His immediate ancestors lived around 300 years or less, decreasing until Moses, who lived to 120 years. Now, Moses lived a long life. You can split his life into 3 periods of 40 years. He lived 40 years in Pharaoh's palace. After he fled Egypt, he lived 40 years in the desert, tending to the flocks of Jethro. He accomplished little in the first 80 years of his life, which is an encouragement to those like me who want to make a difference in their retirement. In the last 40 years of his life, Moses led the Jews out of Egypt, crossing the Red Sea and finally to the desert, to the borders of the Promised Land. Shortly before the flood, God explained because of the sinfulness of man and possibly fallen angels, he would limit man's years to 120. And this is from Genesis. When people began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of man saw that they were fair, and they took wives for themselves of all that they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not abide in mortals forever, for they are flesh. Their days shall be 120 years. And the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went into the daughters of humans, who bore children to them. These are the heroes that were of old, warriors of renown. Now, commentators speculate that these verses were among the oldest in Genesis. Who were these Nephilim? Who were these heroes of old, warriors of renown? Commentators speculate on the meaning of the verses. The book of Enoch also mentions these giants. 10 of the 12 Israelites who spied out the Promised Land report that they saw these giants blocking their way in Exodus. In the few Old Testament verses and other early Jewish and Christian sources that refer to Nephilim likely draw on myths long lost and buried in the sands of history. And now what these stories reveal is that in the ancient world, how long you lived was a gift from God, as men knew little about how to lengthen their days. Our author, George Sweeting, points to Caleb as a Christian role model. When Jews reached the borders of the Promised Land, they sent 12 men to spy out the new land. While 10 spies were discouraged by the giants that inhabited the settlement, Caleb and Joshua were encouraged by their faith in the Lord. As is recorded in the book of Joshua, Caleb says that I was 40 when Moses sent me to spy out the land, and I brought him an honest report. But my companions who went up with me made the heart of the people melt, yet I wholeheartedly followed the Lord my God. Here I am today, 85 years old. I am still as strong today as I was on that day that Moses sent me. My strength now is as my strength was then, for war and for going and coming. So now give me this hill country of which the Lord spoke on that day. And Caleb was truly a man who was strong in his old age. Now there's a psalm for seniors, Psalm 71. Quoting George Sweeting, the psalmist voices some of the feelings that accompany aging, but also states a strong desire to be a light in the darkness. And quoting from Psalm 71, O God, from my youth you have taught me, and I still proclaim your wondrous deeds. So even to old age and gray hairs, O God, do not forsake me, till I proclaim your might to all the generations to come. And George Sweeting writes, Age adds maturity and richness to life. Age smooths the rough edges of life, adding gentleness and compassion. They say the older the violin, the sweeter the music. Some speak of seniors as ancient, faded, frail, shriveled, senile, withered, wrinkled, and worthless. I prefer to say seniors are experienced, dependable, mature, patient, seasoned, steady, wise, tested, survivor, and veteran. And George Sweeting reminds us that each age has its own sin. The sin of youth is the lust of the flesh. The sin of our middle years is the pride of life. You can do it. Take care of yourself. Ego struts his stuff while also seeking security. But the sin of old age is greed, the accumulation of things, the quest for more, the push for security. Old age confuses having with being. However, what you are beats what you have any day. Another word for greed is covetousness, an excessive desire for things. And covetous leads to all other sins, and we've explored this topic in many other reflections. George Sweeting advises us, do your giving while you're living, so you can see firsthand the good your giving can do. To see loved ones help is especially rewarding. To enable struggling people to find hope provides enormous satisfaction. George Sweeting reminds us how St Francis of Assisi faced death. When told by his doctor that his condition was incurable and death would soon arrive, Francis, with great joy, raised his hand to welcome death, quoting from the Psalms. Bring me out of prison so that I may give thanks to your name. The righteous will surround me, for you will deal bountifully with me. In his canticle to the sun, St. Francis praises Brother Sun, Sister Moon, Brother Wind, Sister Water, Brother Fire, Sister Mother Earth, and finally in the last stanza, praise be to you, my Lord, through our sister bodily death, from whom no living man can escape. Woe to those who die in mortal sin. Blessed are those who will find your most holy will, for the second death shall do them no harm. Some early rabbinical writings refer to the second death. It is the death of the wicked. In the Christian book of Revelation, the wicked will, after their first death, die a second death after their first resurrection, where they will suffer eternal torment. Now, our family was blessed to spend time with my mother during her last days in the hospital. Although I accompanied her, I was not able to hear her last words the day she departed to sing in Elvis's choir. And that story we told in our reflections on Epictetus. Now, unfortunately, we couldn't spend any time or talk to my father in the weeks before he passed. He had a phone installed since his landlord was in poor health, but he discovered a painful truth, that if you own a telephone, sometimes people call you. So he requested the phone company take their phone back. And my father was a hermit. Over the course of his life, he did drink too much. Like many ex-military men, drinking was his social life, and he often hung out at an American Legion bar or a topless bar. He was never comfortable around children. Before our divorce, he only saw his grandchildren at Christmas, wrapping his presents in crumpled paper. After our divorce, he never visited or called his grandchildren. And beer hastened his demise. His new landlord saw the dreaded overly plump flies in the windowsills. My father opened the refrigerator to get a beer and keeled over backwards, and the mortician said he was not viewable. Now, since my dad was a Korean War veteran, his final posting was in the Barracks Eternal in the Pine Tree Forest of Bunnell, Florida. His funeral was several hours' drive from Jacksonville. I was accompanied only by my favorite youngest daughter and a close friend, whose friendship Trump later ruined. Every veteran, no matter his rank, no matter how successful he was, even if he was homeless, is sent away with a 3-volley rifle salute by an honor guard in uniform. Afterwards, we were permitted to watch the small cemetery backhoe dig his last resting place in the next available everlasting bunk. Now, my father accomplished so little, dying divorced, nearly broke, estranged from his grandchildren. Was my father's life a waste? Now, most importantly, my father was a kind man. He did not seek to hurt anyone close to him. At the lowest time in my life, he was there, sharing his humble hovel, and loaning me $1,000 out of his meager savings so I could restart my professional career in South Florida. Now, my father lived a better life than those who destroy thousands of lives to live in mansions and float in luxurious yachts, whose funerals are often attended by a multitude. Now, certainly my father was not disappointed at how few people attended his funeral, since he did not complain. So, whatever happens at my funeral, I suppose I won't complain either. These are some of my favorite quotations from George Sweeting's compilation. For age is opportunity, no less than youth itself, though in another dress. And as evening twilight fades away, the sky is filled with stars invisible by day, by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Age has its pleasure, which though different, are no less than the pleasures of youth. Somerset Maugham. Now enjoy the little things, for one day you may look back and realize that they were the big things. It's nice to be here. When you're 99 years old, it's nice to be anywhere. George Burns. Whatever poet, orator, or sage may say, old age is still old age. Sinclair Lewis. One benefit of drawing Social Security is that you are no longer obligated to be a success. And Jimmy Carter also has advice in his Virtues of Aging and Retirement. In one of his quotes, "A joyous occasion is never quite as wonderful as when it becomes a memory." Now my grandfather will look through the obituaries and say to me, "Strange, isn't it, how everyone seems to die in alphabetical order?" And from Ronald Reagan, when in a presidential debate, Walter Mondale asked his opponent about his age, questioning whether he would be fit to serve, and Ronald Reagan responded, "I will not make age an issue. I am not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience." And General MacArthur, "Old soldiers never die, they just fade away." Martin Luther, "Every man must do two things alone. He must do his own believing and his own dying." Leonardo da Vinci, "As a well-spent day brings happy sleep, so a life well lived brings happy death." And preparation for old age should not begin later than one's teens. A life which is empty of purpose until 65 will not suddenly become filled on retirement. Well, that's not necessarily true. At least I hope not. And C.S. Lewis, "When you're facing death, you needn't worry about feeling brave. Our Lord didn't. Remember how Jesus sweated blood when he prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane. How thankful I am that when God became man, he did not choose to become a man of iron nerves. That would not have helped weaklings like you and me nearly so much." We also have a series of reflections on C.S. Lewis's Confession of Faith in Mere Christianity. And we also have a reflection on Paul Tournier's in his book on aging and retirement. And George Sweeting has 3 quotes from Paul Tournier. "One must prepare for retirement. Your manner of life now is already determining your life during those years of age and retirement without your realizing it. People are reluctant to talk about old age and death because they are afraid of emotion, and they willingly avoid the things they feel most emotional about, although these are the very things they need most to talk about. Now, our Christian faith doesn't repress one's anxiety in order to appear strong. On the contrary, it means recognizing one's weakness, accepting the inward truth about oneself, confessing one's anxiety, and still believe. The Christian puts his trust not in his own strength, but in the grace of God." And George Sweeney's best quote, and he is forwarding advice from Dr. Stanley Jones for continuing growth in old age. "Don't retire. Change your occupation. Do something you've always wanted to do. Learn something new every day. Be gracious and kind to someone every day. And don't let yourself grow negative. Be positive. And be grateful for something every day. Make gratitude a habit." And he continues, "Now that your body is slowing down, increase your spiritual activities and prayer life. Each year increase the good store of which Jesus spoke, the depository of every thought, motive, action, attitude which we drop into our subconscious mind. This is the deep subsoil in which we can strike our roots in old age, which will blossom at the end." And let's conclude with the prayer for aging in the Anglican Book of Common Prayer. "Look with mercy, Lord, on all whose increasing years bring them weakness, distress, or isolation. Provide for them homes of dignity and peace. Give them understanding helpers and the willingness to accept help. And as their strength diminishes, increase their faith and their assurance of your love." And now we'll discuss the source we use for our video. George Sweeting, an evangelical pastor who is affiliated with the Moody Bible Institute, wrote this delightfully humorous book on aging with much practical advice. And I like how he drew from many religious traditions for his many examples and sayings. The YouTube description includes a link to our PowerPoint script that we uploaded to SlideShare and also our blog. Please support this channel by sharing this video with your friends and by clicking on the like and subscribe buttons and by clicking on the Amazon links to purchase any of the books we discussed, which will earn us a very small affiliate commission. And please consider becoming a patron of our channel. Plus, we will host special discussion groups for our patrons. Plus, you can click on the Meetup or small M icon to participate in our online discussions, where we practice our future YouTube scripts. And please click on the links for other videos that will broaden your knowledge and improve your soul.